This is Spotlight Omaha. Spotlight Omaha is a local podcast that highlights local businesses and influential movers and shakers in the Omaha business community. Spotlight Omaha is brought to you by Pixel Fire Marketing. Now, from the Pyramid Contractor Studios, the host of Spotlight Omaha, Jimmy Allen.
Not something I could say a whole lot on this show, but good afternoon, Omaha. We appreciate you joining us today. This is the Spotlight Omaha podcast, where we take you around the city of Omaha, introduce you to local business owners, influential figures, and people who are making a difference in our community. We are brought to you by Pixel Fire Marketing. If you need help with search engine optimization, or you want an entire team to manage your social media marketing, pixelfiremarketing.com is here to help. Check out pixelfiremarketing.com for more details today. Joining us in the Pyramid Contractor Studio is Matt Showalter with Absolute Sports Nutrition. Matt, thanks for being here. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Jimmy. Appreciate it.
I think we've seen this this growth of this industry from several different dynamics. Can you tell us what Absolute Sports Nutrition is and how you're helping not only the Omaha community, but Bellevue as well?
Got it. Well, Absolute Sports Nutrition is, well, we're a supplement store first and foremost, but what sets us apart is, one, everybody who works there is a nutritionist.
Oh, okay.
Everything in the store is handpicked by us. And we kind of fall on our own sword sometimes in that we require our supplements to be American made, tested, and of a certain quality.
Why is that a big deal for you?
Well, I hate the idea of selling somebody something that simply doesn't meet their requirements or doesn't work. I like the idea of investing in myself or the other people investing in themselves. I hate the idea of wasted money.
Okay.
And there's just so many examples out there of stuff, supplements, having things in it that aren't supposed to be in it.
Okay.
Or not being as strong as they should be, not meeting label claims. And I simply don't want to be that guy. Fastest way to lose a company when you're a small one location company is lie to people or provide them with crappy stuff.
Yeah. I want to talk about the idea of supplements, because I think that's a wide range of like when people think about it. I think they see multiple bottles on a shelf, or is pre-workout a supplement, or vitamins a supplement. When we talk about supplements, what are some of the just broad stroke supplements that you guys offer at Absolute Sports Nutrition?
It's taking any idea, something that we're probably not doing enough of, or something that pushes us in a given direction physically or mentally, and puts it into a really simple and easy to take pill, powder, or drink.
Okay, gotcha.
That's really what it is. So absolutely vitamins, minerals, fish oils, that kind of stuff. Those are definitely supplements. Pre-workouts, creatines, protein drinks, those are definitely supplements. And we do put ourselves in a little bit of a smaller area. So we're not going to have raw foods in our place. Those are going to be natural foods, natural grocers, places like that. There's great options for that in Omaha. We like to focus on health, but we also tend to lean a little bit into the fitness aspect.
Is that a big deal for you? I don't want to say stay in your lane, but know your market, know what you're trying to sell, but be perfectly fine with saying, hey, but if you need X, Y, and Z, we can send you somewhere and be a resource in that way as well.
We're good at a lot of things,
Sure,
but we're experts at fitness.
Okay.
So when people come in, I want the majority of the stuff that we have in that store to be things that we can explain inside and out. No matter what the question is, no matter what the need is, I can walk directly to the thing that fits what they want, tell them exactly how to use it. And I don't have to Google stuff and figure it out, because that's not
while they're standing there in front of you.
Yeah, that's just not professional.
I want to ask about the meal prepping portion of it, because I think that's something that's been a really growing trend for really the last decade almost. When somebody's coming into the first time and you're trying to educate them on the process of meal prepping, what are some of the misconceptions about it, and how are you helping people do it?
Well, so we do two things. One, so we do free consultations. So if people simply have questions about how to do the math on how much they should eat, what to eat, we'll help them with that. And two, if they simply don't know how to meal prep, we'll help them with that. And those are free of charge things. We don't even charge for that. Now, meal planning is a little bit different. That's when they put all of it in our hands, and we do
because I
the
want to
math.
gain this much muscle, I want to lose this much weight, etc. Okay.
Or they've tried things on their own and they just failed for one reason or another, whether they weren't motivated, whether they couldn't stick to it, whether they just couldn't do the math well enough. And the reality is some of that stuff is frustrating. That's why I have a job.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Because
you're an expert on
because
it.
I'm-
Because
right,
you're not
exactly.
sitting there Googling it, right?
Exactly. So for the meal planning portion, we'll do all the math. We'll help them with their metabolic math, figure out what they should be eating for their goals, put it all into really easy to use software that redoes that math every time they choose a new food. It will tell them how much fits in their parameters. Weekly follow-ups, body composition tests, tweaks and changes, and answering
Because
questions.
everybody's different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But meal prepping, is we just try to simplify things. People make that way too complicated.
What are is that the biggest? I asked what the biggest misconception is. Is it simple as that? Is it's not as complicated as it looks?
I have a lot of sayings
Sure.
that I like to oversimplify things.
I think every business owner has isms, right?
Kind of, sort of, right? So I tell people food is complicated until the exact moment it's not.
Sure.
And then it's really simple until you get in deep enough where it's complicated again.
I gotcha.
Right?
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that at least people reach that middle ground.
I don't want to put words in your mouth, but is it as simple as like moving the goalpost? Okay, it was simple because this is what we're trying to reach. But you want to be slimmer, you want to be more fit, you want to be more athletic, etc. That's why it gets difficult because the goalpost moves.
It does. So
Okay.
once people understand that there is math involved,
Right.
and no matter what happened with their friend or what happened with their uncle or this one guy they know who never had to count calories and he got the results, that's not the reality for the majority of people.
Sure.
Math matters, calorie matters, protein matters. And once we get an understanding of that, things actually simplify rather than get more complicated. And then at some point, people always make it more complicated, or they get so good at this, it's time for the next step. And
It
then we
becomes
have to
hard
learn
again.
how to resimplify the next complicated step.
Sure. You guys do a ton of different things. We're gonna get to those in a minute. But anybody could be looking to become more fit. Anybody could be looking to become more healthy.
Sure.
When we talk about the difference between maybe a 14-year-old basketball player walking into Absolute Sports Nutrition and maybe a 53-year-old coming off a hip surgery, what are some of the similarities between those two people, and what are some of the biggest differences other than obviously their demographics?
One of the biggest things that almost across the board we end up helping people fix right away is finding how much protein they actually should have in a day. There's really only 3 types of food when we break it down. There's carbohydrates, protein, and fat.
Right.
Carbs and
Right
fat
on the back of the labels.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But you'd be surprised how many people don't read the label.
Sure.
They simply grab something and somewhere they heard this is a healthy thing.
Right.
So I can eat as
Vodka,
much as I
not
want.
healthy.
Almonds are healthy, so I can eat as many as I want. Well, they're a high calorie food.
Yeah.
Avocados are healthy. I can eat as much as I want. Well, it's a high calorie food.
Everything's good in
Right?
portions. You got to know what portions you need.
So the easy stuff to grab and the things that people associate with healthy, a lot of times are very carby and very fatty.
Sure.
Very rarely are they high in protein. And again, oversimplifications, muscles made out of protein.
Right.
So if people are eating plenty of these healthy things that are high calorie, but not eating enough protein, it's going to be hard to get stronger. It's going to be hard to physically excel and make our muscle work harder and better and repair better. So the first thing that we do almost across the board is we find out how much protein somebody needs for their goals, whether it's to feed their workouts, feed their recovery, or help them repair faster from surgery. We need protein for all of those things. And if we can immediately make that efficient, everything else is honestly a whole lot easier. Still requires effort,
Sure.
but a whole lot easier. It's the biggest, big, broad swipe thing that we can do for people.
I just mentioned the different type of demographics that you guys are helping, but what is the most common thing people are walking into the door to Absolute Sports Nutrition for the first time?
Well, what's funny is, so I'm 45.
Sure.
And I started doing this stuff when I was 19.
Okay.
And when I was 19, the average client that I dealt with
19.
was in their upper teens and early 20s.
Right.
As I got more and more into the science of it, and I got older, my clients also got older.
Sure.
So even though I certainly have teens and early 20s coming in,
I don't mean to cut you off. Do you think that's because maybe your passion and where you were in your life kind of changed, or do you think you just learned so much more about the older demographic it kind of steamrolled?
well, I think to a degree that part is probably true.
Okay.
But I think also the fact that when you get somebody in who finally experiences somebody giving them correct advice rather than just shoving stuff into a bag,
Sure.
you can build some sort of loyalty.
Absolutely.
And those loyal
because
people,
they're getting the results they want.
they get older with me.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's great. That's a good point.
And
Good
as
point.
they get older with me and they refer people to me, a lot of times those people have friends that are of similar age.
Gotcha. And is it as simple as when we talk about what's bringing them back, or what's the reason you get for repeat customers? Hey, what you gave me works, and I'm looking for more information.
Most of the time, I have someone say, I've never actually had somebody explain that to me before. I've picked up this kind of stuff before, but I didn't really know why I got it.
This kind of stuff. That's great.
Right?
Yeah.
But this is the first time it was truly explained to me. I feel like I can use it better now. Thank you. I'm going to be a customer of yours.
We're catching up with Matt Showalter of Absolute Sports Nutrition here on the Spotlight Omaha podcast, brought to you by Pixel Fire Marketing and Pyramid Contractors. Everybody deals with a customer that thinks they're right, maybe they're not, or
Sure.
a bad experience because maybe you're explaining math to them, they're not listening, things like that. When we're talking about business, how difficult is it for you when you are an expert in the field? You probably are giving out correct information on a more regular basis than not, and somebody comes in and says, hey, this doesn't work because what you sold me isn't right. Is it difficult for you to be able to step back from the situation, because it is your passion, but it's also your business at the same time, and deal with somebody of that nature?
So what's fun is you can actually do both of those things.
I agree.
So customer service is important. And if somebody is truly not satisfied with the product that I gave them, I'm going to refund it or let them trade it for something else. But I'm going to take a moment to ask them a few questions to make sure that there wasn't a misunderstanding, because I can throw a lot of information at somebody all at once, and it can get muddy. And you can go home and you can go to sleep and you can wake up the next morning, and a lot of that just doesn't stick. So there's a big possibility that something wasn't implemented properly. So I'll ask some questions, and you'd be surprised how many times people go, oh, you know, I was not using it like that. And most people are, as long as you're not being pushy, people don't come in and I don't say, you're stupid.
Right. Yeah.
You didn't use it right. You're stupid. It's like it's not. It's
a long process.
Well, it's frustrating stuff for people who don't live in that world.
Right.
So no, I try to take a minute to explain and find out where the disconnect was, or if it legitimately wasn't something that worked for them. They might be different than the majority, or whatever the reason. And if it's simply not a fit, that's fine. It's you can't do business.
And if you can't help that person, you
without
don't want coming back
every once in a while. Just okay, man, I'm sorry that didn't work for you. I'd love to give you another chance, but here's your money back for today. I get it.
Is that something that has gotten easier as business has grown for you, or is that something that's always been pretty simple for you?
I think that's just the cost of doing business. Whether you're making a little or you're making a lot, I think there has to be some customer service built into this. And sometimes somebody's just not going to agree with you, even if you're right.
It's one of the biggest struggles people face in this room that they've said that they've struggled with. So I'm happy to hear that. When we talk about the different brands that you guys use, the stuff you put in the bag, the supplements that we talked about earlier, who are some of the favorite brands that you guys have in the store that you're happy to work with?
So years ago, I bought into a company called Max Muscle.
Okay.
So we were a Max Muscle sports nutrition franchise for almost 10 years. And I bought into that franchise because they followed a lot of those beliefs.
Yeah.
At some point, the company didn't do what it needed to do to keep me as a franchise, because you pay
probably
fees.
Grew too much,
right? But when I went off on my own, I made sure to keep that company because I like how they make products.
Okay.
So Max Muscle is still one of my top products.
Gotcha.
But Titan Nutrition, which is relatively local, they're just down in Missouri.
I was gonna say, I thought that they're in right out of Joplin, correct?
Near Olathe, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
So they're down in Missouri. NutriBio is a fantastic company that is incredibly transparent. And on their website, you can look up every lot number and see their testing of everything they've got. Axe and Sledge is a very popular nationwide company that's actually really popular with the kids too.
That's the hat, correct? That you're wearing?
The hat.
Okay. Yep.
They do a very, very good job as well of all that stuff. So we carry some of their products. And then there's a few here and there that we'll pull in a few from that are just really interesting, as long as they still follow that.
You guys are right down on Cornhusker Road in Bellevue, right across the street from DJ's Dugout, where the old DJ's Dugout used to be, correct?
Same parking lot as the old DJ's Dugout.
What is the response from the community? I'm old enough to remember when DJ's was over there. What is the response from the community of Bellevue been like? You mentioned how long you've been there. What has it been like, and how are you giving back to Bellevue?
So being there for so long,
Mhm.
it just feels like home.
Right.
So, things stay pretty consistent. I see hundreds of the same people,
Sure.
not only in the
Like
store,
thousands of the same cars.
yeah, but out and about when I'm shopping, you see them too.
Sure.
One of my favorite things is when I go to grocery stores and I see one of my clients, I'll sneak up behind them and
Sure.
point out stuff in their shopping cart that they shouldn't have. That's maybe a little bit toxic of me, but
No,
I like
I think
doing
it's
it.
great. That's hilarious.
I think that's fun.
It shows you care, right? And not from a customer service standpoint, but about what you're telling them as well.
Yep. But I mean, in general, we've done a good job of keeping business pretty steady. There's going to be some of the newer crowd that just wants the newest thing or the thing that's in the magazine. It hasn't been vetted. It doesn't quite fit the standards that we want.
Sure.
And that's what I meant earlier when I said sometimes we fall on a sword on purpose.
Yeah.
I could make more money.
Sure.
If I brought in every brand.
Do you mind if I ask about it? Because obviously in today's day and age with things like Ozempic and things that are kind of taking the weight loss market by storm.
Sure.
But not necessarily nearly as probably as tested as some of the stuff that you guys have on your shelves. Is that as simple as, hey, we want to make sure that what we're doing has proof behind it before we stretch into that market? Or you supplements, exercise, diet, and stick with the facts and the numbers strictly?
We want to be able to offer some of the newer, interesting stuff.
Sure.
And I'm not going to say we've never brought something in and then later on when new information shows up, we've taken that off the shelf.
Okay.
We have absolutely done that. We
try
to
work with the knowledge you have, right?
Yeah. We have to deal with reality sometimes. And sometimes if you find out you're wrong, you just have to deal with it as quickly as you can possibly do. I'm not perfect.
Nobody is.
Do my best. No matter what I look like, I'm not perfect.
Nice.
But yeah, sometimes you just, you have to chalk it up to the whole, maybe there wasn't enough information, but now there is, so I'm going to change.
Right.
So yeah, some of the stuff that's out there immediately sketchy.
Yeah.
Immediately sketchy.
And I think that's what everybody's thought process is, right? Because we've been told for decades that there's this magical trick to weight loss, and then it's always been a little bit of fool's gold. So I think that's a lot of the market, but there's clearly a lot of science being put in it. So we're not trying to knock anybody. I just was wondering what your thought process was around that.
Well, there's more than a handful of shops that exist out there that are all about extreme.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I want the extreme things. I don't care if there's potential side effects.
Right.
I'm gonna do that.
Maybe
I want
a
it.
fourth arm. Right?
And I get a lot of phone calls from companies that want to sell the extreme type stuff.
There it is.
And they seem really taken aback when I'm saying, I want nothing to do with that product. I want nothing to do with that ingredient that is in your product. It's not worth it because of the harm that it might inflict upon my clientele.
We're catching up with Matt Showalter here on the Spotlight Omaha podcast, brought to you by Pixel Fire Marketing and Pyramid Contractors. He runs Absolute Sports Nutrition down in Bellevue. You talked about it a minute ago. You mentioned we're a one-shop. Look, we're a one-shop store, and we're in Bellevue, and we love the community. We've been there for so long. So when you've been there for that long, what does growth over the next 2 to 3 to 5 years look like for Absolute Nutrition? So
that's a great question. We were pretty wildly successful for a long time, and COVID put a big dent in it. We have an online presence, but we thrive on people walking in our doors.
Sure.
So
it's easy to educate them in that situation, right?
And during that time, I mean, everybody was basically told, don't leave, don't go anywhere, click the mouse. And clicking the mouse is super easy, right?
Right.
And if you're already clicking the mouse, you can see everywhere and anywhere, but you don't get to ask the questions.
Right.
So I would love to have more online presence. Some of that is the goal. I'm working on that right now with revamping my website, but I'm doing it myself and I suck at that. So that might take a little bit of time.
Keep an eye out for that.
But yeah, I mean, we're hoping for that 10 or 15% growth over the next 1 or 2 years.
Okay.
Nothing crazy, but
that's
measurable.
Realistic. Sure. Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
And if we can do that, we're going to keep moving forward forever.
I want to ask about you personally. You're a business owner, you're a husband, you're constantly educating yourself on the products you have. You're taking phone calls for people to try to sell you the extreme stuff. How do you balance work life, going at home, putting the phone away? Is that difficult for you to do?
Not really. My wife has her own business too. She works from home.
What does she do?
She sells clothing and accessories
Okay.
all over the place using
So she
she uses all the online things that I
gotcha.
was just crapping on.
She could relate to you because she's also somewhat in the sales business as well, right?
Yeah, so it's neither one of us give the other one any pressure
Right.
about why aren't you being present.
Take that phone call. Yeah.
Exactly. And our hobbies overlap.
Sure,
So
that
she's a
helps.
gym rat, I'm a gym rat.
Gotcha.
She's a big jujitsu competitor. I love jujitsu. So even when I'm doing stuff that's not at home,
Yeah.
a lot of our hobbies overlap. So we get to spend some quality time
together,
together that way.
What is something you know about business today that you wish you'd have known when you opened the store up? 8 years ago, correct?
So I opened up that store 13 years
13
ago.
years ago. I'm sorry.
13 years ago. I suppose it's just feel. There's a lot of things that you feel like you have to do for business that you don't. And over the years, you get to streamline and you get rid of wasted movements and wasted this. And then you get to save more money and be more involved in other things. So I used to try to be involved in everything. I used to take all the time without delegating.
Right.
I used to think the thing that had a 1% impact needed 20% of my time.
Sure.
So you get better at that kind of stuff. Just like I get better at teaching people about food and supplements, I get better at not wasting my time as well. So I don't actually spend as much time in that business as some people probably in their first few years do. It's not an overwhelming amount of time for me. I actually get to love what I do and still have some time away from
That's
the store.
awesome. And maybe that's the answer to this next question. Then if somebody out there is listening and wants to become an entrepreneur for the first time, what's the best piece of advice you can give to that person?
Oh, expect to work ridiculously hard and way too many hours for your first few years.
Yeah.
It does not pay well at the beginning. You should probably spend a really long time putting together that business plan and putting together at least two of them. One, what is the blue sky? What do I hope this is?
Yeah.
And two, if everything absolutely falls to crap, what's the reality that could happen then? And if you could live with either, cool, go forth with confidence.
Yeah.
If you can't, then figure out a way to deal with this, at least if it does happen. You got to have some kind of plan when it comes together and then be willing to put in the time. My first few hours, I easily worked 80, 90 hours a week.
Oh, yeah. You guys have Bellevue West right down the street from you. Bellevue University's right down the road as well. Are you seeing athletes from those schools respectively coming in? Is that something that you've seen an influx of?
I do. So I actually see more from the university than anything else because these kids are doing higher level athletics. And mind you, college kids don't exactly have the most money in the world. You have to understand that.
Especially at an NAI school.
But they usually have some kind of budget for it.
Yeah.
Because if you're playing sports in college,
you've been maintaining your body for a while.
You know the importance of doing some of that kind of stuff. The high school kids, we do get some, and the ones we get are usually the really good performers because they're starting to focus on quality and doing things right. But a lot of high schoolers, let's be honest, it's what they saw on TikTok or their buddy took something or they love the flavor of this thing versus how efficacious it can be. And it's hard to catch the average 16 or 17-year-old
that knows everything,
who can find something ridiculously cheap at Walmart and they don't care about quality, or they just find the thing that's newest and trendiest on TikTok and they can buy it on TikTok Shop instead of my store.
What is the area that you'd like to grow in the most over the next 2 to 3 years? Like, is it supplements? Do you want to eventually add food to the stores? Like,
no, I don't want perishables in my store necessarily. Gotcha. But I actually have two goals, and they're completely opposite.
Right. Yeah. Like you just said, you did have two different targets, right?
I do want to have more of the younger crowd in.
Okay.
I want to find a way to connect with them. I've recently brought in some lesser expensive things that are still really, really good quality. That'll work. They're just not some of the really super fancy brands. So I need to get in front of them and find a way to maybe put some of it in their hands and see how we can spread. Maybe we'll see if I can find a young influencer or two.
That's your own TikTok page. There you go.
Something like that, right? That hurts my heart thinking about it. But maybe
this is going to be on TikTok and some shorts. You'll be happy to know that. By the way,
I get it. Just the only time I was really on it was still a bunch of teenagers doing the dancing.
Yeah.
I know it's more than that now.
It's evolved a little bit.
Right. So I do want to focus some on that, But again, I'm getting older.
Yeah.
And I do sports that hurt my joints.
Sure.
And I want to start getting more into a little bit of the older crowd. Specifically, I want to get into some of the pickleball tournaments.
Okay.
Because these guys,
it's exploding.
They're doing incredibly athletic stuff, or sometimes they haven't done incredibly athletic stuff for a while. And now those joints are starting to ache. Maybe those joints aren't quite putting up with it the way that it should.
Sure.
And I've got great things for joint maintenance and joint repair and joint health.
We had a really good referral for you when we get done here. Then,
awesome.
By the way, you mentioned it. You do jiu-jitsu and some. You said Muay Thai as well, correct? Is that
back in the day? I used to with Mick and those guys here.
Why is that such a big deal for you to keep doing that? Why is that your passion?
So I was a wrestler in high school and college.
Right. Where'd you go to college?
Dana. Back when Dana was still at college.
Say R.I.P. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
And oddly enough, that's part of what got me into what I'm doing now.
Sure.
As a college wrestler, I tore my left shoulder completely apart. And I still wrestled an entire season that way.
I broke my left ankle 3 times. I'm with you. I understand.
So when it finally did get repaired, I was told I probably wouldn't be able to do some of the extreme sports I wanted. Right. And I don't know if you remember being in your early 20s. I rejected that opinion really, really hard.
Yeah.
So that's where I really started studying and doing a lot of the physical stuff to try to build that up.
Yeah.
And then to prove that I absolutely could, I continued on into grappling and MMA and fighting type sports. And turns out it was just fine.
The greatest MMA fighter of all time is?
Oh God, that is so hard.
I know. I get asked this a lot, and I think I have a different answer every day.
I'm going to say this out loud.
Sure.
And I'm going to change my
somebody
mind
you don't like.
It's not that I don't like him. It's just you hate his style, but he was the best. Anderson Silva.
Yeah.
What he did in some of those fights, just clowning people.
He got the idea. He got the memo. It's entertainment at the same time.
It's until he broke his own shin.
Yeah.
It was just incredible how he could take such high level fighters and treat them like children
and do it in convincing fashion.
Yep.
Hey, before we wrap up, we've asked a lot. We talked about a couple different things here. Is there anything about Absolute Sports Nutrition we haven't mentioned that you'd like people to know?
We're literally there to help.
Sure.
The whole reason I've done this so long is because I love seeing what I call the epiphany moment. It's when you see the light bulb go off over someone's head.
I get it. Yeah.
When you give them some advice that nobody else ever took the time to give them, and you can see on their face that something clicks, and it might just alter how they do things for life, and it can make a huge impact on their health and fitness for years, if not longer, maybe even their family. God, that does it for me. So come in, ask me questions. Consultations are free. Half of my day is just answering questions because I love it. You don't have to buy stuff, although I'd really like you to.
Yeah.
I do have bills.
Sure.
But if you just have questions, I love talking about it, and so does my employee.
Garrett, Scott, and Rick, I didn't ask your questions because I'm about to answer them right here. Over 62 5-star reviews on Google. 2340 Cornhusker Road down in Bellevue is where you can find the team at Absolute Sports Nutrition. 402-932-2629. Head over to absolutesportsnutrition.co as well. Matt, if that's all you got, I appreciate your time today, and we appreciate it.
Thank you.
That's Matt Showalter, the owner and operator of Absolute Sports Nutrition. We'll be back on Monday here on the Spotlight Omaha podcast with a new business owner here in town. Just opened up a few days ago. Hopefully you can join us. We're back at 11. We'll see you on Monday. Thanks for being here.